Yo, 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 welcome back to the Further Your Lifestyle podcast, conversations on lifestyle, passions, and hustles. My name's Chris Furlong. I am your host, and I'm super excited to be back here having the conversation with you. Episode 72 today, and I'm excited to get into it. And we're going to be talking about perspective. We're going to be talking about how when you change your perspective, things can be a lot better than what we thought they were. And it really comes down to this quote. When you change the way you look at things, things you look at change, by Wayne Dyer. Now this does, it changes everything. It really changes the whole conversation, it changes the narrative, and it changes the way that we can see things or look at things going forward. Now we all know when things happen, we have a chance to see how we see them. We have a chance to choose how we see them. We have a chance to see how we perceive them. We can see the good, the bad, the new opportunity, the silver linings, the missed opportunities, the loss, the wins, the regrets, the hindsight, and the list goes on. We get to decide, we get to choose, but we tend to usually fall into certain categories of these depending on who we are, how we've been brought up, or just how we're currently seeing things in the world. In the times of like hardship or when things don't go in our favor, I feel naturally or often we tend to usually fall into the whole perspective that, oh, these things were going to happen and that's life and we can't do anything about it. And we have that a negative approach. We kind of get stuck in like, oh, well, I didn't have a choice. These things were going to happen. And yeah, you do. You feel negative about it and you kind of don't think any more than just moping. That is a generalization, but that's what we tend to do. But the simple fact is when we actually look at things differently, when we actually look at things from a different perspective, as a message or a different analogy or a different understanding, it changes the reality of the situation. When we start to look at things differently, maybe in a positive way, it starts to reduce stress, it starts to, increase our confidence, but also boosts our self-esteem. An example of this would be, say, you're doing a business deal and something goes wrong or the business deal falls through, or maybe, you miss out on a business opportunity, or maybe no one's buying your product. We can look at this as failure. We can look at it and think, no one likes our stuff. What we're doing is wrong. We're not good enough. We don't have enough to cut it. Or maybe we're not lucky enough like some of the other people, or, we're just not good enough. That's probably usually what we think about. And we start to lose confidence. We start to then, second guess our decisions and we start to think, is this really what we want to be doing? But in this moment, if we actually take the time to reflect, evaluate, and then leverage this opportunity to, assess the learnings, take on board the lessons from this situation, we can actually really grow from this. We can actually use this to actually move us forward. Change the perspective, change the narrative, and change the path. That's really what I want to say. When we change the perspective, it changes the narrative and it changes the path that we go to, or follow, or begin on, or step onto. You get my point. So we can ask ourselves, why did the business deal fail? Or why did the business fail? Why are people not buying my product? Why are people not wanting to come back and buy my product? We can start to ask ourselves these questions to look at it from a different perspective. It then forces us to rethink the business model. It makes us rethink, can we do this different? Can we pivot? Can we adjust? Could we have done things better? Hindsight, we can look back and see, an understanding of a situation or event only after it has happened or developed. But naturally, the best thing about hindsight is only if we take the chance to ensure that it doesn't happen again. And that's really what we want to do. That's the focus that we should be doing, is take the moment to learn and get some hindsight from it and understand, okay, this is what's gone wrong. This is what I could have done better. How do I now apply that forward? There are many, many ways that we can look at things in different perspectives, that we can, take a situation and look at it differently. And the beauty of taking perspective is it gives us a bird's eye view. It gives us a fresh pair of eyes to these situations to help us make a better decision, or to help us, reevaluate, rethink, or plan ahead before we actually react or act. So I'm going to take you through a few different perspectives or a few different ways that you can do this. Some of them might be relevant to you. Some of them you might have done before. Some of them maybe not. Hear me out and just see if anything here can apply to you. The first one is, when planning and thinking, avoid thinking in terms of should of, or should be, or should happen. The reason why is because this sets some unstated or unrealistic expectations around the fluff that needs to happen between now and where we want to be. Having this assumption that all the things will just fall into place or it should just work out, it's just a bad mentality, because when those things don't go as planned or how they should have, then we start to think this isn't good, this is bad, and we start to panic and we start to freak out, we stress, and then it all just crumbles before us, and it can snowball quite quickly. Having this idea of how things should be doesn't mean they will be, and it doesn't mean that they can be. And then further, I guess, dwelling on, they should be this or they should be that, and not actually doing anything about it is also a bit of a boo-boo, because we can think about these things should happen, but if you're not going to do any of the work to make them happen, then it won't happen, right? So that's also the catch-22. The other thing is, if knowing that something is out of your control, yet you're saying it shouldn't be that, it should be this, that's even worse, because this is going to hinder your ability to have a mindset to enable you to grow. If you don't agree with something and you're saying it shouldn't be this, it should be that, but once again, you're not working around it, you're not pivoting, you're not adjusting, it's going to get you stunted into this position where you won't be able to move forward. So you need to avoid this whole mentality of should be or should have, because, as I said, you get stuck that this is the ideal situation when really the reality is completely different. The next one is consider other people's perspectives. It's so easy for us to misinterpret or misunderstand other people's thinking, especially if we have assumed that, the conversation that we've had, we're suggesting the same thing, or we're talking about the same thing, or that we're noting the same thing. A classic example of this could be maybe you want to catch up with a friend and you both say, oh, let's meet at noon for lunch. So you say, okay, this is great. Yep, I'll see you then. Now, in your head, you're thinking, cool, let's meet at 12 p.m. Someone else might be thinking 12:30 p.m. Someone else might be thinking 1 p.m., around there somewhere. And when one person arrives at 12 and the other person arrives at 12:30, is one late or is the other early, or are they both on time? And this is a classic example. Just because someone does something which does not align to your thinking, that doesn't mean they are wrong. But you might think, why are you late? When they aren't late because they've assumed that you're too early, or we weren't meeting till 1, so they're actually early. And it's those small little assumptions or presumptions that get us into this sticky situation. Before you can react to this, or before you can actually make comment, you need to understand where they're coming from. Why are they even saying that? Why are they saying you're late, or why are they saying you're early? Because clearly they had a different understanding. Just because you do something that is right for you doesn't mean it is actually right, or actually the best way to do it. I think this is a hard one that hits hard when we're talking about ourselves, is because we think what we do works and is right because it's working. But just because it's working doesn't mean it is right. And I think once you realize that other people's ways could actually be better, they're not trying to prove anything to you, it's just better. Just because it works better. And if you can apply that to yourself and you realize that it works better, hey, it's a win-win. So don't get up on your high horse when you realize something isn't working in your favor because of the decision you made, or because of your understanding of it, or your perception of it. At the end of the day, we need to walk in their shoes for a day and understand where they're coming from, why they've done this, or what's their position. Remember, we all have different lifestyles. Some people have families, some people have kids, some people are married, some people are divorced, some people are in relationships, some people have different status quo. Everyone is different, and when they make a decision, or they make an assumption, or they do something, it is based off everything behind them, meaning how their world is made up. And that's the same for you. So just take a breather, think about where they're at, put yourself into their shoes before you take on a huge perspective of your own. The next one is find something positive in the moment. When things go south, we tend to look at the bed, and where you look is what you will find. So if you're looking for positive, you'll find positive things. If you're looking for the negative things, that's what you'll find. The next one is think bigger picture. Now, I like this one because right now we are in a maze. Right now we are trying to figure out where we're going. We can see all the walls around us. You can see some walls near you, and you can see all the different paths that we can walk around to and see all the different, opportunities ahead of us. But we're kind of still stuck in these boundaries of different walls of this maze. But when you widen your lens, when you actually zoom out or change the way we think to be more focused on our end game of where we want to be and what we're trying to work towards, we can actually zoom out, as I said, and get this bird's eye view of looking down on the maze. And we can actually see where we need to go. We can see the end result. We can see that there is lots of little paths that we have to take, twists and turns and zigzags and all that jazz. But we can start to see that where we are currently, there's a lot of stuff we need to go through. But when you have that fresh perspective, it helps you just move forward. It helps you take the next step. One thing that I love to challenge myself with is when I take on something new or when I'm doing something and I'm not too sure what's going on or if it's part of what I want to be doing, I make sure I validate that with my planning of, is this going to get me closer to where I want to be? Whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And understanding, is this part of my end game? You got to do that. And when you do that, you can do it with conviction, own it, and run with it. The next one is gratitude is king. And I've done a whole episode on this one before, but when things are low, rough, tough, whatever, and you're just not feeling yourself, a great way to negate the negativity is to think of something that you're grateful for. And this doesn't have to be big, it can be small. And focusing on those small wins or focusing on things that you're grateful for and help turn your attention and focus onto something that gives you joy, that helps you just feel great, that makes you smile. And then by doing this, you can banish, I guess, all that moodiness or that negativity or the worry. And the next one is, or you could just smile, and it really does help. Do it right now. See how you feel. And the final one that I probably want to mention is journaling or brain dumping or just writing down any negative thoughts. This will help you change your perspective. It'll help you see things clearer because once you get them out of your headspace, once you get them thrown out of, what you're trying to even develop in your mind, you're only going to be left with hopefully just positive thoughts. But it's just a great way to, decompress and get rid of the fluff that you don't need. And it could be it's a similar, like if you were writing down in a gratitude journal of writing down the things that you're grateful for, it just reaffirms them. Getting rid of that negativity, writing it down and even scrunching it up and throwing it away, it goes a long way. It might work for you, it might not, but give it a try. Give it a try. So there are some ways that we can change our perspective, view or manage our current perspectives. I think we can use all of these. We might already be using some of these, but if you're struggling with getting a fresh perspective or just going through some things that have kind of thrown you off your rails, think about these. Now, I can relate to these, and it's always a great thing to do. For me, my big one has been just enjoying the small wins and being very grateful for things, and also thinking bigger picture. How can I adapt? How can I change my course to get me to where I want to be? At the end of the day, when something happens, we need to process it, right? We have to go through that process of understanding what's just happened. And there will come a time when hindsight will kick in, which is what we should leverage and what we can use to help us appreciate that through that time, through that experience, we have grown. And I guess that due to having gone through that experience, we've been able to move forward in a better direction or move forward with some foresight. And that's the kicker. It only works out to be better if we actually take from the learnings and move forward applying those lessons and learnings, as I said at the start. And that enables foresight. It helps you see, no, this is the wrong way. Or if we do this, we should get that because we know not to do the wrong thing that we've done in the past. And that's hindsight. And that's the beauty of it, to learn from our mistakes in the past and understand what went wrong to ensure that we don't make that same mistake and that we can use foresight to move forward. However, again, it also then comes down to, what happens between now and then. And with the right perspective, it can be a whole different story and process. If you don't have the right perspective, you could end up not where you want to be because you're getting stuck in perspectives that are hindering you, slowing you down, or taking you on the wrong path. Change your perspective and it changes everything we know. And it'll help you find things and see things differently and new and fresh. Remember, if we stick to all that we know, that's all you will do. Until you change that perspective, you can't really broaden that horizon. It's the same thing with your comfort zone. If you're comfortable, until you start to grow that boundary and push outside your comfort zone, you won't grow. As I started with, when you change the way you look at things, things you look at change. And that's really the whole message of this episode. Really do appreciate you being here. If you've enjoyed this episode, I would love if you could leave a review. I would love if you could connect with me and share what you learned. You can hit me up on the socials, on Instagram @furtheryourlifestyle, or on Twitter @furtheryourlife, or drop me an email, hello@furtheryourlifestyle.com. If you are on Apple Podcasts and listening there, you can leave a review. That would be greatly appreciated. Or on Spotify, I think you can give a rating as well. Otherwise, maybe if you just resonated with this episode and you think someone else could take a big win from actually listening to this too, please send it to someone, share it with someone. I would be super grateful for that, and I would thank you in advance. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful day. I appreciate you being here. Cheers. Now, if you didn't know, we do have the podcast merch, and this is with a key focus of enamel pins. Now, if you haven't checked these out, make sure you do, because the intent of these are really just to be a small token and a reminder for you to charge on, to push on, and to further your lifestyle. Whether it is a gift for someone else to encourage them or maybe to inspire them, or maybe it's a way to motivate yourself, or you can simply just make a purchase to simply support the podcast, which would be greatly appreciated. We do also have some sweaters and some long tees, so make sure you check it out. Link in the description and in the show notes. Really do appreciate it. Cheers.